6:30 executive session. We'll discuss personnel and legal matters. We'll start with the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd also like to have a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Ronald Webb, who was a junior high and senior high assistant principal. He was here for over 17 years, retired in 2004, and he passed away. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Albert? Here. Mr. Hauser?
Here.
Mrs. Kozar? Present. Mr. Moeller?
Here.
Mr. Music?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Dr. George?
Here.
Mrs. Mays? Here. Dr. Bachman?
Here. Next is the hearing of visitors, part 1. It's where anyone can speak on anything on the agenda. You'll come to the podium, give your name and address. However, I would like to say that we are going to be early on having a presentation. So if you have any questions or comments about LES, we will right after the presentation, also having hearing visitors to address that part, so that it can be done after people have given information in this way if you have any other type of questions. But if you have questions that don't pertain to that and wish to come to the podium now, you may do so.
My name is Quinn Collins. I live at 1293 Poplar Road, Greensburg. I saw that you bought units to transport students. And I was wondering, are those certified drivers that are driving these vans from your school?
So that's not.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. We'll have a hearing of visitors at the end of the meeting for all other items. The first hearing of visitors is for agenda items other than LES, and then after the LES presentation, we'll hear any visitors on LES.
So we have the resolution, I move for the adoption of resolution number 1, the approval of minutes. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That vote passes unanimously. Solicitor's report, Mr. Nichols.
No report, Madam President.
The legislative report, all I have to say is the governor last week officially vetoed the admission of full time. Happening next week. Property and supply, Mrs. Kozar.
Yes, at this point I would like to introduce Mr. Hatch to give us his perspective on that.
Before he begins, I do want to say to the public, I'm aware that our feasibility study was handed out. The study contained ideas that we were discussing and tossing around, some of which have been discarded. And it is a shame that people have been getting upset and worried and concerned about items that we are no longer even considering. So please listen to this report with an open mind. This is accurate as opposed to all the information that was out in the feasibility study.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce the report that Mr. Kotrick is going to review with all of you. Just a little background here, which I think is important. A few years ago, a year and a half ago, the Property and Supply Committee has repeatedly talked about LES in relation to some major repairs, namely the roof. And Mrs. Kozar is the chair of the Property and Supply Committee, and she is certainly aware, as well as the other members, as well as the board, that the roof of Latrobe Elementary School has been an issue, and we have repaired quite often, and actually last summer did a repair to the tune of about $50,000 because of some significant leakage. That repair prompted the district to look at Latrobe Elementary School, and it's always been a question of the renovation. If you're aware, the district prior to my coming to Latrobe had done renovations, some significant renovations to all 5 buildings, and that LES was the first one of the 5 to be completed, recognizing that Latrobe Elementary would be the next building to be reviewed. Because of the age of the building and the questions or the unknowns, the board decided and authorized Access Architecture, namely Mr. Kochik, to do a comprehensive facility assessment back in February of 2014. This past school year, the board held 2 retreats. The first one reviewed in general the assessment big report, but in May held a retreat and really reviewed and toured LES at that time to be able to see firsthand some of the comments that were made in the facility assessment report. And so tonight we'd like to review with all of you again, as well as the public, the information that has been reported out regarding the facility. But before we do that, we just want to move forward and talk about the history of LES, which probably many people in the audience are familiar with, and that being that the building was originally constructed in 1914 as a 4-story high school in the shape of an E. We'll show you a little map on the next screen after we get through this slide. In 1936, there was a 4-story addition to add capacity, and it added classrooms and increased the size. And when you see the map, you'll see that it filled in the other side of the E, basically. In 1965, there was a 2-story wing that was added, and the building was converted to a 7th and 8th grade junior high school. In 1974, the building was used as a 6th and 7th grade middle school. In 1982, it was renovated to elementary school housing kindergarten through 6th grade, which, as you are all aware, is what it presently houses, kindergarten through 6th. And then the last major renovation was in 1993, a renovation that replaced the mechanical systems, the finishes, and repairs to the building envelope, which is the exterior. So if you look at this drawing, plan, thank you. This was the original construction, and you can see the shape of the E, which was represented in the previous slide. And then that addition in 1936, which completed the E, which when you look at the front of the building, that's truly, I believe, what you see. And then that addition of the 2-story wing, which was done, I believe, in 65. Those other renovations that we listed on that previous slide did not add any buildings and so on to the actual plan of the building. It simply renovated certain components of the building. At this point, I wanted Mr. Mears to share with everyone what the Latrobe Elementary School boundaries are, because I think this is a real important piece. As you're all aware, Greater Latrobe is made up of 72 square miles, and this is the area, and he's going to point out with a pointer what this all means, because I know it's difficult to read, especially if you move back and you can't see some of those roads that are designated. Mr. Mears, maybe you can speak loud enough.
Yeah, probably.
Microphone. Okay.
I'll try not to click the wrong button.
Okay, don't do that.
Okay, LES, as you can see, probably in transportation-wise is bigger than either of the other 2 school zones in square mileage. And I think the conception is that it's just in town. That's really not true. If you look how far out it goes out here by 119, you're talking almost out past Crabtree, on the far border of the school district. And it comes all the way back and knocking on the door of Monastery Drive on this end by St. Vincent, extensions. And then it goes into town and comes up by Sheets, by the dairy border, and then town Latrobe. So if you just look at the whole perimeter, when it comes out and nudges Beatty County Road here, Donahoe Road, Roscovinsky, this is a large busing area. But I think a key piece that needs to be understood is inside here, I'm going to say right now there's roughly 750 kids that go to Latrobe.
808.
808 that go to Latrobe Elementary School. It is the largest enrollment school in elementary that we have. The other two are pretty balanced though, within 125 kids of it. So they're all three. It's pretty well laid out population-wise, in other words, the balance of the three. The key is an LES right here, out of those 808, any given year you have between 350 and 400 kids that just walk to school. So depending on where any location would move to in this process, you have to be careful how far you're moving away from town, because you could add 400 kids to busing, which might not seem like a lot, but that's about $300,000 a year, every year recurring, just to pay for the school bus. So I think the pieces that I want to emphasize is how many kids just walk to school at LES. Over about half the population actually walks. So, and that's the boundary, like I said, all the way up at 119, back in the monastery, over to Dairy. So when you see that size, but the congestion right here is a big cost savings to the taxpayers of us.
Thank you very much. There you go. Mrs. Holler is going to give a brief review of what is at Latrobe Elementary School right now, just to give you a picture of the 2014-15 school year.
Good evening. At Latrobe Elementary School, when we looked at our demographics, like Mr. Mears and Mrs. Swigert stated, we had approximately 808 students. We average about 800 students every single day. And you can see the breakdown of those 808 students. We do house K to 6, as well as 2 life skills classes, and that might be news to many people. We have a primary and an intermediate, and we have students in those programs at all times. There's our average classrooms per grade. We average about 5 rooms for every grade level, and every once in a while you'll see that bump of 6. So our numbers can go up. What we do a lot of times is have 6 classrooms, the K to 2, and then beginning around 3rd grade we can put more students in a classroom because they're able to do more than what our little ones are able to do. In addition to all of our classrooms, which we consider home rooms, we also need spaces for support. We do a lot of small group instruction, so we need places for those students to go. And you can see the breakdown. We have reading specialists, we have learning support teachers, we have classroom assistants who take kids and need spaces for them. We have what we call a large group room. It's sort of a multi-purpose. We really use it for small group instruction, but we use it for other things as needed. We actually share a classroom, our gifted classroom, our teachers there a couple days, and we have to share it with our school-based therapist because we're really out of rooms. There's nowhere to put her at this time. So we use that room for both purposes. And we do have 1 extra room in the building that our guidance counselor will use when she does counseling groups, or if we need to have meetings with teachers, or just any other meetings with kids. We also have encore classes. We offer 1 art room, 2 music rooms, a band room, a library, and a gymnasium, which is consistent with other buildings. And we are the house to some other outside groups. Down in our first floor, IU7 has an early intervention preschool. We also have a room for OT and PT that they share. And we also house the Historical Society in our building. And they take up a couple of our rooms. Thank you.
Now, Hank will do the meat of the presentation.
Starting with this slide, what I've tried to do is present an overview that highlights some of the information found in the comprehensive facilities assessment. I've tried to label them all with to categorize them. The first group will be code safety maintenance. This group consists of things that it's pretty self-explanatory. Either it's something that doesn't meet the current codes. It met the codes at the time it was constructed, but not now. Safety, a lot of the codes are built around safety, so they go hand in hand. And maintenance would be things like the roof that Mrs. Swagger talked about. So this first one is stair handrails, and it falls under code and safety. The existing stair railings do not meet the current code. They're not 42 inches high, and they have more than a 4-inch gap in some areas. Things we're talking about here is from the floor to the top of the railing, it's not 42 inches high, and that's a code item because it's a protection piece that if it's under 42 inches, there's a greater chance of falling over the railing. The other thing that happens is that the code requires the spacing between these railings to be 4 inches or less. The actual code says a 4-inch sphere cannot fit through any section of the handrail. And that's for multiple things. One is so smaller children can't crawl through, but what happens more than that is smaller children end up getting their heads in between the railings and can't get them back out. So those are the things that most of the railings show. This picture is hard to see, but I wanted to put it in here because this is the top of this stair, which is the top level of a 4-story stairwell. And with the railings at this height, it's hard to see, but there's a distance there of about 45 feet, 50 feet that you could fall from the top to the bottom in this slide. Next one, again, code safety maintenance. The windows, code energy efficiency life cycle. The existing windows do not meet the current code. The reason for that is they do not have a limiting, wrong button, sorry about that. They don't have a limiting factor on their opening, so as you can see from the second story up, the windows can open more than that 4 inches, and they do cause a safety issue for that reason. The other thing with the windows, they are older, and at the end of their useful life, they're wooden windows. They don't meet the current energy efficiency standards and would be considered to be replaced during any major renovation project. The next item, maintenance, entrance, ADA compliant security. A lot of these slides will fall under something called ADA compliant. That's the Americans with Disabilities Act. And in doing a renovation, there's specific things that the ADA code requires. And one of them is, although you do not have to bring a building up 100% to ADA compliance, what the code requires is 20% of the cost of the work that you're doing for a renovation has to go towards bringing a building up to ADA compliance. And if you're able to bring the building up to 100% compliance and under that 20% cost, then you do that. You bring it up to 100%. So for instance, in a renovation project of, say, a $20 million renovation project, that would mean that $4 million of your budget has to go towards ADA upgrades, or you have to bring the building to 100% compliant. And $4 million goes a long way in making ADA upgrades. So at this building, when I talk about ADA compliance, the assumption here is that you would be, if you renovated it, the numbers would allow you to be 100% compliant if you were to do a comprehensive major renovation to the project. So for instance, at the main entrance, not only do you have a set of stairs that you have to get to the main entrance, but then once you're buzzed in at the main entrance, you have another set of stairs to get up to get into the building. So there are quite a bit of issues involved with the ADA compliance portion on this. The other portion of this is the security aspect of the building. It does have a buzzer to allow visitors into the main entrance, but after they're in the main entrance, they sometimes have free run of the building, whereas when we do a renovation similar to what we did at the junior high recently, we'll create an extra level of security and have a second set of doors that are locked and require people to buzz in a second time. And what this allows is for a face-to-face view of that person through a window instead of just through a camera at the main entrance. So you add an extra level of security that we would recommend here. But with all the ADA issues in a renovation, it may be best to just move the front entrance because it becomes very difficult to make this an accessible entrance. The roof, Mrs. Sawyer talked about, the existing roof is in need of replacement. They have been maintaining it and putting Band-Aids on it, repairing it where the leaks have happened. But the existing structure of this building, including the roof joists, is a wooden structure. And if you remember from that first slide, a portion of this building is from 1914, which makes this wooden structure over 100 years old. And with the leaks that have happened throughout the years, it is showing signs of deterioration. So there are certainly areas of this wooden structure that will need to be replaced. When the roof is replaced, depending on the severity of it, you may end up, once you pull this roof off and replace it, you may end up finding that you would need to replace the entire roof structure with a steel structure. Auditorium, balcony, maintenance. The issue with the auditorium is that sometime in the past, the fixed seating has been removed because it was worn out. So there are currently loose chairs sitting on these risers. This slide is dark, I apologize, it's pretty sleek. But these are risers, they run this way, and so the floor is at different levels as you go up. And with these chairs on these risers and being portable, it's easy for them to slide on when it's being used and could cause a tumble. And at the bottom of this railing, that's what you, at the bottom of this balcony, that's what you're overlooking, the main auditorium. So there is the possibility that an accident could occur in this situation. Finishes maintenance. This falls under cosmetic and maintenance and safety issues. The carpeting was replaced during the last major renovation in the 90s. It's hard to see in these pictures, but anybody that's been in the building can see that all the carpeting throughout the building pretty much is worn, frayed, wrinkled, and becoming loose in a lot of places. It's causing tripping hazards when you walk down through the rooms. There's also the VCT, the vinyl composite tile, is cracking and needs to be replaced throughout the building. This area is, again, hard to see, but this is that existing tile, brick-looking flooring that's in the original 1914 building. It is in relatively good shape because it is pretty durable of a material, but it does create a very uneven surface and makes it difficult for some of the younger children to navigate well. The exterior facade is another maintenance item. In the 90s renovation, or even somewhat earlier than that, a lot of the large windows were replaced with smaller windows to help with energy efficiency, and the areas around them were filled in with a system called EIFS, which is exterior insulated finishing system. It's a modern stucco type of system. But as you can see in this area, that finish is starting to peel off. And what will happen if something is not done with this type of area, it loses its waterproofness and will allow water to enter into the cavity of the wall and will cause water damage to the freeze-thaw cycle. And it just, once it starts, it just deteriorates and gets worse and worse. Same thing happens with the brick. The brick has been repointed, but there are areas that require attention. If not attended to, the same types of things will happen with the brick that is happening with the EIFS now. There is a pretty thorough asbestos and lead paint report in the facilities assessment. In general, the areas of asbestos and lead paint located in the exposed areas of the building are pretty minimal considering the age of the building. A lot of it has been removed. There are things like the mastic, which is the glue underneath the 9x9 tile throughout the building, that's asbestos containing, and there are areas of lead paint throughout the building, and those areas should be controlled and addressed in a major renovation. One of the unknowns with a major renovation of a building of this age is once you start pulling walls apart and taking up finishes and things, you're not sure what you're going to find. You could find more asbestos on pipe insulation and things like that, and lead painting boilers and that type of stuff once you get further in depth in a renovation project. ADA compliance, again, the building, as you were told earlier on, is a 4-story building. That makes it difficult to make the entire building accessible. There is an elevator, we'll go through that slide later on, but a lot of it, the 1964 edition was put on at a intermediate level between the existing building, and that's what you're seeing in this picture. So one elevator does not provide access throughout this building, because you can be at this floor, but then when you drop down into the next addition from 64, you're a half a flight down. It's like in a house, a split level entrance to a house. So what has happened is a chairlift has been put in to allow access. That's all well and good, but the current codes, that's really not the proper way to do that. And this area is the entrance to the band room, music room. Right now, that's the hallway up there. You have to, currently, the band room is recessed, so you walk down a flight of steps to get into the band room. It made it an inaccessible space for disabled individuals, so this ramp was built. This ramp was built to try and help stop that from happening and allow access, but unfortunately, there wasn't enough room to build a proper ramp, so it doesn't have the proper slope to it. And I'm not sure if you can tell from this picture, the only place to put this ramp was along this area. That is a door to another room, so right now the ramp blocks that door. So you can't get in and out of that room from this location. So that there are things that were tried to be done, but in a major renovation, they should be handled and fixed. Toilet rooms, ADA code compliant, the same types of things. There are all sorts of clearance issues required in a restroom facility these days, and these don't quite meet those requirements. So a lot of times you end up having to turn 2 stalls into 1 stall if there's not enough room, or you do some major renovations to make there be enough room to do that, because there's also codes requiring how many fixtures you have in the building depending on your occupancy. One of the other things that happens in this building, even before you get to this space, it's hard to see in this picture again, I apologize, it's dark, but there are several stairs to get from the corridor up into the bathroom. So right off the bat, you don't have accessibility to the restrooms, even if the restrooms had all the space requirements and turning radius is necessary. The other item that happens here is this door doesn't allow for the access that you need. You need at least 1'6" access between this frame and this wall to allow for a disabled person to have the room to get in and navigate and open the door and get through properly. Again, with the ADA compliance, this deals with your accessible route. This is one of the first things that when you start dealing with that 20% rule, they give you guidelines on what you do. You start with the outside to get the people in the building first, and then there's guidelines on how you address it from that point forward. So these slides are showing some things. Although you have accessible parking spaces throughout the building and they're labeled and they meet the current codes, unfortunately, after the person gets out of the vehicle, they have things like curbs to deal with and stairs to deal with, or they have an inaccessible route, which means the sidewalk from where the car would be in this area over here somewhere to the door that they're talking about being accessible, which is this door. The sidewalk is too steep and doesn't meet the requirements, and in actuality, the entrance at the door, there's a change in grade that doesn't allow it. So there are things that have to be done in a building. Your building, although like I said, you have the proper parking facilities, you don't have the accessible routes to get to the buildings. They're all things that need to be addressed. Areas of rescue assistance and the elevator. The existing elevator does meet the current codes for elevators in existing buildings. So you would not have to replace your elevator in a major renovation, but again, the elevator serves the 4-story building. It does not serve the 2-story addition, and with the split level, you would have to address that. But one of the things, this is the entrance to the elevator. The area in this entrance doesn't meet the space requirements for turning radius and those types of things. So although the elevator meets the code, the entrance in and out of the elevator does not, and renovation would have to occur to allow that to happen. The other item is the areas of rescue assistance, which is the areas in the stairwells where a disabled person during a fire goes and presses a button to tell the emergency responders that, hey, I'm here, come get me. They're not up to the current codes. At the time of installation, they may have met the codes, but any major renovation would address those areas and bring them up to current codes. Drinking fountains is another code ADA compliant item. The current drinking fountains are single fountains. The new code requires a dual fountain, which means it's a high-low fountain. You would have one at a lower level for disabled people in wheelchairs and things along those lines to be able to access, and another one at the normal mounting height for other people to use. There are clearance issues in some cases. This one is close, but in some cases the recess is too far. In other cases they stick out from the corridor too far because this is on an extra thin piece of wall here, and that was probably done to allow for the plumbing to come up into it, but that makes it stick out from the wall into the corridor too far, and a visually impaired person could walk into it without realizing it was there. Doors and clearances, it goes back to the things I was talking about. This door is not recessed, it's a corridor door. It swings out into the corridor and creates some hazards, both for exiting and for the safety of people walking down the hall and the door opening and hitting them. The other item is the classroom doors, that clearance item that I was talking about, the 1'6" on what's called the pull side. When you pull the door open, you need 1'6" clearance between the latch and the wall that comes out in this direction to allow for maneuverability for disabled when they're opening and closing doors. So those things would have to be addressed in a renovation project. The existing gym wall, there are some pretty major cracks showing up along this wall. This picture shows it pretty well. This picture does not show it, but I have it in there for the extent of it because it goes the entire length of the gym. This crack, the cause of this crack is unknown at this point. As part of any renovation project, it should be investigated further and repairs should be made. If it's found to be structural in nature, it could be some major repairs. At this point, we're not sure. It would take some destructive investigation to find out the cause of that crack. The wood structure, as we talked about previously, this slide you've seen, this is up in the roof cavity space, but also the floor joists in the 4-story wing are all wood structure too. And that causes some other items that further on that we'll see with code with sprinklers and some other things, and it causes some maintenance items. And again, that wood structure in a lot of cases is over 100 years old at this point. There are some floor settlement and some structure issues. This area, it's a lot of the slides are a little dark, but this is in the 1964 or 5 edition. The floor has settled along the exterior wall. There's a gap here of about 1.5 to 2 inches in some places, and it goes up and down. This could be caused by several things and should be explored. If it was a matter of just poor compaction during construction, it's settled, it's run its course, it would be cosmetic at this point. But another issue that could be causing this could be leaking downspouts or water infiltrating under the slab and eroding some of the gravel and some of the things along those lines. So during a renovation project, it should be investigated. If it's found to be water infiltrating, the source of that water should be repaired, and the floor should be repaired at that point. This area, this slide shows some remediation that has been done to the existing floor structure. The wooden structure, as I said, was wood floor joists. They've settled or sagged or bowed or any term that you want to use for that. And sometime in the past, shims have been put in over top of this and plywood has been installed again to try and level some of these floors out because they were pretty uneven at some point in the past. This was a band-aid to the problem and should be addressed in any major renovation project. The exterior of the building, the envelope As I had said earlier, the mortar the bricks have been repointed at some point in the past and are in fair condition, but it is an ongoing maintenance item, especially in a building of this age. Mortar that is missing between joints should be repaired because water enters these, and through the freeze-thaw cycle, it expands and contracts and causes items like this to happen where spalling starts happening and areas start deteriorating. And it doesn't take long for this crack to turn into this look. So any renovation project should repair the remainder of the exterior facade of the building. Now we come into mechanical, electrical, and plumbing items. Power distribution maintenance. The building's main distribution panel is original to the building. The MDF, main distribution panel, feeds a combination of newer and original building branch circuit panels via conduit and wire feeders. The new branch panel boards were installed during the 1993 renovation. The main distribution panel and the older branch panels are original to the building and require replacing. So what this is saying is that the main power coming into the building is fed by a system that is original to the building and needs to be replaced. Some of the branch panels have been replaced, but some are remaining. Any one that is remaining is outdated and it's hard to get parts for and breakers for and things along those lines. And so this whole system needs to be upgraded during the renovation. Emergency power. The building is provided with a 75 kilowatt emergency generator. The generator provides powers life safety equipment including emergency lighting, the elevator, and the fire alarm system. The generator is currently in good condition, but will be undersized for loads required during the building renovation. Right now, it's a life safety generator. That's all that it's doing. In the future, in a renovation project, we usually recommend powering at least one of the boilers, the circulating pump, any walk-in coolers, the security system. In new renovations, keys are outdated and a lot of the access is through card readers and proximity readers. All of those things need to have power, or when the power goes out, you can't get into the building. So those types of things would be powered by a new generator. So the generator would need to be replaced in the major renovation project. Lighting. It's a code and an efficiency item, and they go hand in hand. The code item relates to efficiency. The general lighting consists of fluorescent fixtures, T12 lamps, and magnetic ballasts. This lighting is not energy efficient, and magnetic ballasts have been phased out. The existing T12 fixtures throughout the building should be replaced with either fluorescent T8 fixtures with electronic ballasts or new LED fixtures, both of which are more energy efficient, and the LED fixtures would provide a major decrease in your maintenance because the LED lamping happens at a much less rate than even the T8 fixtures would. Emergency lighting code. I'm disappointed this slide didn't turn out all that well, but right here, if you can make it out, that's an incandescent bulb. A lot of the emergency lighting in the building is emergency only lighting, which is fine, but it's all incandescent bulbs. Incandescent bulbs are fragile. They burn out relatively easily. A lot of times you won't know that the emergency light is burned out until there's an emergency and the generator kicks on. So you know there are tests and maintenance that happens on these things, but this is a maintenance nightmare, and there aren't enough of them to begin with in the current code. So this would be completely redone during a renovation. The fire alarm panel. The building is served with an FCID series fire alarm system installed during the 1993 renovation. The devices include pull stations, fire alarm, strobe combinations. Additional horn strobes are required in order to comply with the current codes. The ADA, the Pennsylvania UCC, the NFPA codes. Based on the age of the system, the engineers are recommending that based on the age of the system and the current code requirements, the engineers recommend just replacing the system. It would be more cost effective than trying to make this system meet the current standards. HVAC system life cycle maintenance. and this is also energy efficiency. The building HVAC system consists of central station air handling units, variable air volume boxes, hot water heating, and direct expansion DX cooling. The units serve classrooms, offices, and ancillary spaces throughout the building. The air handling units and associated condensing units have reached the end of their useful life, which means they're already causing maintenance items and repairs, and will soon, they will only get worse. They're over 20 years old and have increased failures, resulting in increased maintenance costs for the district. The unit should be replaced in any renovation project. Boilers, energy efficiency maintenance. Natural gas-fired boilers provide hot water for heating and the building. The boilers are cast iron sectional boilers. The boilers have a combustion efficiency of about 80%, which back in 1992 was not that bad. Boilers should be replaced now with a minimum 92 plus efficiency boilers in any renovation project. You will save a lot of energy costs doing that, and the boilers are reaching the end of their life also. Kitchen exhaust code. The kitchen and cafeteria is served with ceiling-mounted air handling units. These air handling units provide conditioned makeup air for the exhaust hoods in the kitchen. The hoods were installed prior to the 1993 renovation and do not meet the current codes for fire protection and exhausting of cooking appliances. These hoods should be replaced with any renovation project. Again, with any major renovation project, we're going to want to bring the kitchen up to the current codes and current standards, and that would require replacing these hoods. Temperature controls are outdated. The building has a combination of pneumatic controls and direct digital controls. The main boilers, pumps, and air handling units and associated HVAC equipment are controlled by pneumatic controls, which is outdated system. Those were systems that were used even back when the building was originally built 100 years ago. The building uses direct digital controls for scheduling and controlling of the pneumatic actuator and valves. What this does is it's tried to give your maintenance director the ability to remotely control portions of the building by trying to control old pneumatic controls with modern direct digital controls. It's a laborsome system and hard to control. The direct digital control system needs to be upgraded to current technology. The pneumatic controls need to be replaced with direct digital controls. The whole system is antiquated and should be replaced. Domestic water. The building is served by a 4-inch domestic water service. The age of the underground service is unknown. A backflow preventer is located on the service and looks to be relatively new. During any major renovation project, you would want to do some exploratory work on the main service coming from the road and see the condition of it and make any repairs required or replacement of that at that time. The same thing with the sanitary and waste system, but this goes on and has what we think might be some other issues too. The underground system may be tied together with the storm drainage system. In the past, that was a pretty common thing. It is not allowed by code now. You can't put storm water into your sanitary system because all that does is it requires your sanitary stations to treat more water than they need to treat. The reason we think this happened is there were problems reported with water running out of the floor drains and out of the drains of the electric water coolers when it rains. So that leads us to believe that somewhere along the lines they're connected together and there's a backup or at least if not a complete obstruction, a reduction in the size of the pipe and causing this backup to happen because it's not taking all the rainwater that's coming through. These types of things need to be addressed during any major renovation project. They should be addressed during any minor renovation project. Natural gas. The building is served with natural gas. The age of the underground service is unknown. Natural gas feeds the boilers, the water heaters, the emergency generator, and the kitchen equipment. Again, during any major renovation project, exploratory work should be done to ascertain the condition of the gas service. Sprinkler systems. There is a small portion of the building that is currently protected by a wet pipe automatic sprinkler system. This system was added when the area was renovated. Code will require the entire building to be converted, to be covered during a renovation project due to the amount of floors and the construction type. The existing building is a wood structure. It is 4 stories high. There are all sorts of portions in the code that talk about how you either have to compartmentalize the building into areas of limited fire access, meaning you have to build additional 2-hour firewalls that will allow one portion of the building to collapse while the adjacent portion will remain. If you don't do that, you sprinkle the whole building. At this point, sprinkling the building would be the more cost-effective route to go in a renovation project of this nature, because in sprinkling the building, you get some other benefits with some of the other items required by code, meaning you get some leniency on some of the other things. The amount of floors that the building can be, the amount of areas that the building can have without having fire separations. A lot of those things are the requirements of the size, depending on where the building is sprinkled or not, change. Now we get into what does all this mean money-wise, because that's always a big question. So we've tried to put a conceptual project scope cost to this project and tried to categorize these items. We've categorized it down into major architectural renovations, curriculum driven. Those would be the things that deal with how school was taught when the building was built in 1914 as an elementary, as a high school, and then throughout the years of renovation, how curriculum changes. So those would be relocating spaces, team teaching, all those kinds of things. That's what they fall under. We're estimating about $4.5 million of the money would go towards that. Code safety, maintenance driven items, that would be the estimated about $6,500,000. The ADA portions fall into that, but so do the maintenance and other code items. Major electrical renovations that we talked about, 3.6. Major mechanical renovations, 4 million. Major plumbing renovations, 850,000, almost $1 million. Asbestos and lead abatement, again, for a building of this age, is a relatively low number, 150,000. That all subtotals about 19,600,000. Then we add soft costs. Soft costs include financing charges, but a big number of this is contingency for unknowns. And that's one of the reasons why this number is up at 18%. When you're renovating, when you're doing a major renovation of a building of this age, you are going to come across things that you find during construction that you didn't know about. And it's prudent to budget ahead of time for that type of scenario. Those would be the change orders that everybody talks about. And in a renovation project, they're usually, history shows that they're higher than in a new construction project because there are more unknowns. History also shows the older the building is, the more unknowns there are, the higher the contingency should be. So at the end of the day, that comes down to a total cost of $23,128,000 to do a major renovation to the existing Latrobe Elementary project. At this point, I'll turn the presentation over.
So clearly, we're presenting two options to the board tonight, and to the folks that are assembled today, you would say, why the need for two options? Well, what Hank just thoroughly discussed with you is what renovation can cover, what renovation can do for a building that was built at the turn of the century, the 20th century, and a building that was designed to educate 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old students, not students in kindergarten through 6th grade. So if we take a look at another slide, there are items that cannot be addressed in a $23 million renovation. There are educators from LES in the crowd tonight. Some of those educators were in the building in 1993 when it was renovated. I heard it when they were coming in. I was there the last time, Mike. I think that they would tell you that education in 1993 looked a whole lot different than education in 2015. There are things that we do differently now with our students that require different spaces and different types of spaces. The first bullet point that's there is that if we renovate LES, we are renovating a 100-year-old high school, a 4-story high school, a school that was designed for 16 to 18-year-olds. This building hinders flexible grouping, which is essential to our elementary program. This building hinders collaboration among grade level teams. It was designed for secondary teachers. It wasn't designed for grade level teachers who communicate on an almost instantaneous basis. Now, I might not understand the difference between LES, Bagley, and Mountain View, but I happen to spend 5 of the best years of my life at Bagley. And I've watched the communication and collaboration process that goes on in that school, and I'm telling you, it happens easier because of the physical concept, the physical construct of the building. There are members of the 3rd grade team from LES here today. Their classrooms are spread over half a floor. You may say, big deal, so they have to walk a little further. You're right, big deal, they have to walk a little further, but that takes time. Time that could be spent collaborating. There's natural collaboration that goes on at Mountain View and LES, or Mountain View and Bagley, when teachers simply step out in the hall to go to lunch. Doesn't happen at LES. Large common areas, such as the gym, cafeteria, and encore areas that Mrs. Toller talked about, are not centrally located. Big deal. Kids have to walk a little further, right? Yes, it takes time. Instructional time in music, instructional time at the library. But it also takes time to walk back, which means instructional time from language arts, math, social studies, and science. Big deal, so we lose a little bit of time, right? 3-4 minutes every day, added up over 180 days. It's significant. It's time that's valuable. How's education different from 1993 to 2015? Accountability. Our teachers have to deal with the ultimate accountability in language arts, math, and science. So you know what? 480 minutes matter. Big time. When you look at the physical plan of the building, parking will still be limited under renovation. Anyone that's ever attended a musical event at LES knows this. Morning arrival and afternoon dismissal still takes place on public streets. The City of Latrobe does a great job of providing police and fire police every day to maintain the safety of our kids at LES. This can be addressed in a new construction. It can't be addressed at LES. We've tried. We've tried. If we remain at LES, we have no bus lane. Walkers and car kids dismissed to the same public street. If you've been there, it's an organized fire drill. We do a great job, but it is amazing. This site will still not have a ball field grass playing area. Kids, when they go to recess, other than kindergartners, have to walk 2 blocks to the stadium. Big deal, so they have to walk a little further, right? Time matters. They don't get 30 minutes of recess. 30 minutes is important for those kids when they're in school, being held to the highest standards that we've ever had in public education. It matters. Finally, the disruption to education during a reconstruction or a renovation of LES is something that I can't put a price tag on. I can't put a timetable on it. This building, if we would maintain this original site and we would renovate this original site, the one thing you'll notice is that we're landlocked. There's no place to put temporary classrooms. There's no place to move kids. We have more kids at LES today than we did in 1993 when the building was renovated. There was about 679 students at LES. 100 of them did half-day kindergarten, by the way. So there were 629 full-time students at LES when we renovated in 1993. Today we're over 800. Those extra spaces to move kids when you close down entire floors do not exist. My next slide shows you the areas that would have to be massively renovated. You know what? You can't read the key, it doesn't matter. The entire building, you saw Hank's presentation, the entire building is in need of massive repair. There is no part of this building that will be untouched. There's no part of this building that won't be untouched in a major way. I can't tell you the value, I can't put a price tag on the value of the lost instructional time and the disruption to the regular school day that will occur through a renovation process.
So the question came up, if we don't renovate, what do? We build new. And so the question came up, well, what would it cost to build new? What would it cost to build a new elementary building for approximately 800 students? So that's a relatively easy thing for an architect to answer, because especially an architect that does school work, because we do this every day. So we can figure out how many square feet approximately, without going into a lot of work, we can figure out how many square feet approximately an 800 student building would have. It's approximately 125,000 square feet. We know the current cost for construction of a school building is approximately $200 a square foot. That comes to $25 million. And as you can see here, the soft cost number has come down, the percentage has come down slightly, from 18% down to 15%. This is due to the fact that there are many fewer unknowns in a new project, a new construction project, than there is in a renovation project. So that comes to a total of just under $29 million, $28,750,000. That is what it would cost if you wanted to entertain building a new elementary building for 800 students. The next question was, well, conceptually, what could that building look like? So that's what this slide represents. It talks about a lot of the things that we just talked about with collaboration and movement through a building and the space. What would happen is you want to ideally put all of your common spaces centrally located in a building of no more than 2 stories. So you have your centrally located spaces, your library, your administration, your cafeteria, kitchen, stage area, gymnasium. Those types of spaces would all be centrally located in the core of the building, flanked by classroom wings. Then these classroom wings could now be divided into sections for kindergartners, first graders, second graders, third graders, fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, and some of the other spaces that were talked about with life skills and those types of things. So that is how that would work. This slide represents a conceptual site plan showing the building in blue in the center, the ability to have adequate parking, the ability to drive around the building, the ability to have separate car vehicular traffic from bus vehicular traffic, parent drop-off traffic, all those types of things that the state wants you to do to create a safe and functioning elementary building could happen in a new, theoretically on a new site. The next slide showed, well, where could those sites be? We looked at several sites, but it came down to this is basically the city of Latrobe. This is the location of the existing Latrobe Elementary building. Right here is the existing administration building. Across the street from the existing administration building is a park. That park is of a size that would allow that site plan that I showed you to function. It's still located in the downtown area, allowing the 400 walkers that Mark talked about to still be able to walk to the school. So it is a possible location for the site. What would a building look like on that site? This again, just rudimentary, throwing that building of that square footage on this site, showing the access roads and things like that. It clearly shows that would fit. Some of these, this was just putting this on here to see if it would fit. If it were truly to be the site, some of these things would be adjusted. Some of these roads would not be required. You wouldn't need double the roads and things like that. You could free up the site a little bit more. But the point of this slide is to show that building would fit on that site if that were the direction the board wanted to go. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Watson.
I always get the fun part to come up and talk about money. But what I wanted to talk a little bit about here is how would we fund a project like this? We talk about costing between $23 million and $30 million. But what we would need to do is we would need to issue new bonds. This is very similar to what we did for the senior high school, the junior high, and all 3 elementary renovations. While we list the cost between $23 million and $30 million, that's just for principal. So for interest, we would need, with interest included, we would need to fund $30 to $40 million. We recognize that. what we would have to do is wrap it around our existing debt structure. Currently, we have a balance of $25 million that we owe on previous debt that we took on in the early 2000s, specifically for the junior high and senior high school renovations. Interesting fact, PD sets a cap that you cannot exceed as far as borrowing funds that the school district cannot exceed. I calculated that up today, and our cap is $111 million, okay? So we're at $25 million right now. We were far below the $111 million threshold that is set by the state. Okay, what would occur if we had to, or if we went forward with these projects, whether renovation or build new? We'd have to extend our existing payment schedule. Currently, that $25 million will be paid off on June 30th of 2020, okay? What we would do is we would project a 12-year payback of whatever borrowing level we would take on, which would extend our new payoff date to June 30, 2028. So that's step one that we would need to do. We would need to push that up. Step two, we need to maintain our existing local effort. And what I mean by that, currently we have over a $50 million budget. Included in that budget is a budgeted line item for debt service payments, annual debt service payments. We have a budgeted line item of $4.8 million. We would need to continue to maintain that for several years. Eventually it will decline, but we will need to maintain it for a longer period of time, obviously, than if we did not do anything. Okay, so that's step two. And then we have another issue that we have to deal with. The $4.8 million, it will fund our debt service payments in years 4 through 12 of this borrowing. Years 1 through 3, though, it will not cover. We'll be slightly short because if you recall, we'll be paying off our final principal for the high school and the junior high projects. So normally what happens when you wrap around, you hit interest on your new borrowings immediately, and then you pound the principal later. Well, by even including the interest, it's going to take us above that $4.8 million, okay? What I would propose and what I would suggest to the school board is you attack that in several ways, okay? We'd have to use some of our district reserve funds. We have a capital reserve fund. We've been successful in setting aside $3.2 million to fund our 5-year rolling capital plan for the $180 million of capital assets that we have district-wide. Obviously, a lot of that, the projects that we have coming and the money that we've set aside is specifically for LES because it is the building that has the greatest needs. So what I would suggest is that we use a portion of that $3.2 million, okay, because that's one-time money. We just need to bridge the gap for 3 years. We use a portion of that so that we do not have to adjust our budget at all, okay? That's one option. What's not noted up here, we also have an undesignated fund balance, okay, of around $3 million. We can tap into that as well and use that to offset that 3-year period of that a little bit higher budgetary need. And then the final piece is, if the board would want to, we could use capitalized interest. Basically what that means is we would borrow a little bit more than we actually needed and utilize that over that 3-year period and then pay back on the back end, okay? And you can do a combination of all 3 of those things. You can use a portion of your reserve, capital reserve fund, you can use a portion of your fund balance, and you can do a portion of capitalized interest. So there are quite a few options. Now, before I would make my final recommendation to this board and to the community on what I would suggest we do, it depends on the path that we decide moving forward. Okay, are we going in the direction of a renovation? Are we going in the direction of building new? Because there are also, when you do your borrowings, you have bank qualified versus non-qualified, so we have to talk a little bit more about that. But we have many options as far as funding goes that will allow us to have no budgetary impact for that specific line item. Okay, I know that was a very high level. I'm happy to answer questions that you guys have right now. If you'd like me to expand upon anything, Judy, let me know if there's anything on this. Okay, thank you.
George.
I'm sorry, Dr. George.
What was the difference between the first 3 years?
The difference in the first 3 years, again, These numbers change. These numbers change depending on the option that the board chooses.
I understand.
But I did a snapshot assuming the most costly scenario, just to kind of give you an idea. In the first 3 years, we would need an additional around $3 million, so it'd be about $1 million a year, okay? You just made me think of something there. The other thing that you need to keep in mind, and I know we've talked about this in some of our previous discussions, while you may use your reserve over a 3-year period, $1 million in the first year, $1 million in the second year, and $1 million in the third year, those debt service payments will eventually drop off below that $4.8 million amount that we have budgeted. You can maintain that for a year or two and replenish if you need to. But you wouldn't need to make that decision until that time comes, because something might happen between now and then that had already allowed us to replenish those reserves. Okay? But that's just to kind of give you an idea. And again, that's kind of at the highest cost scenario.
Your highest cost scenario would be based on building a new building?
Building a new building, doing a non-qualified borrowing, which just means it's just a single borrowing, not divvying it up into 3 $10 million borrowings. Yes, and yeah, oh, I'm sorry, the other factor is we're all aware of the state budgetary issues, and we know that a portion of these projects are reimbursable, but the state has put a moratorium on adding additional funding to that, okay? So I made the assumption that even though about 10% of this project is reimbursable through the state, my assumption is 0, that we would get 0 reimbursement from the state. So if you think about it, if we were eligible, if we were to receive, that'd be additional $3 to $4 million.
The debt, just talk about 2 things. And this one, I think, is a question for Mike as well, and Hank. The renovation of and I'm getting to my point with you. The renovation how long would the renovation take if we were doing a renovation?
A renovation would take, that's a good question, because there's 2 portions to it. There's the design portion and then the construction portion. The design portion of a renovation or a new building would be approximately 1 year. From the time that you would give the architect to go ahead and start designing the project until the contractor show up on site is approximately 1 year. The difference falls under the renovation versus new. When you're renovating an occupied building, it's going to take longer because you can only do small pieces at a time, because you have to shuffle students in and out of spaces to allow vacant spaces to be renovated. So a renovation project, I always consider a 2-year construction period. So you're talking to renovate a building from the time that you go forward until the time the building is finished and being used in the renovated state is 3 years. A new project is 2.5 years. It's that same 1 year of design, but it's a 1.5 years of construction, because you don't have to deal with, you can work on the whole building in 1 year.
So in the renovation then, when would our interest start? When would we'd have to do the wrap prior to, then we'd be paying the interest for what we were borrowing at the time over the period of time, right?
Yeah, we would be paying the interest in the initial years until the principal on our other borrowings drop off, and then they would layer in the principal payments.
Okay, so it'd be laid out for as much as we brought down, you'd pay interest almost drawn, and then ramp back up to completion.
Yes. Yes, Mrs. Owen.
What kind of assistance does the state currently provide with debt service?
As far as reimbursement?
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, right now, depending on the size and the type of your project, the reimbursement levels fluctuate. Okay, so for example, we renovated our high school, and I want to say that reimbursement rate was around 22%. Now that was back in the early 2000s. Okay, this one, based on conversations that I've had with Hank, is around 10%. So if it would be a $30 million project, we would be eligible for about $3 million reimbursement from the state, which would reduce our local obligations.
Would you address the idea of the difference that the taxpayers would feel if we paid for this over an extended period of time rather than trying to pay for it quickly? Isn't there some assistance to be gained from the state from doing that? Because it's a debt that you owe.
Well, you know, obviously, as far as the state goes, I don't necessarily know how to answer that, but as far as the borrowing goes, the sooner you pay it back, obviously the less interest you pay on it. And again, I think that if you would talk to any financial advisors that has had the opportunity to review our financial statements and our debt service schedule, we're very fortunate. We have a very small amount of debt, which allows us to pay back a $30 to $40 million project in 12 years. That's not very common, okay? And the reason you would want to expedite it or do it more quickly is, I think what your point is that it does save the school district and the taxpayer dollars by paying it back over a short period of time rather than pushing it out, let's say, over a 20 to 30 year period.
That was my last point. The amount of debt that we have currently versus our financial position versus
You're exactly right.
million that you...
Right. The fact that we have such a low debt level right now, we're in a fortunate position.
A quick question for Hank and Mike. Mike, are we talking, if he's talking about a 2-year renovation, we're talking about displacing 30% of the kids, 25% of the kids?
He would tell you the actual percentage, but I think that was a big eye-opener for me. It is the time frame. I think that we make a decision and we'll have a pretty quick turnaround on having a new or renovated building. But the truth is, you make a decision tonight, which I know you're not doing. But even if you did, you're 30 months out. So for a good 18 months, Hank, we're going to displace in some form.
In this scenario, if you're doing a major renovation, you saw from that one slide, you're touching just about every space in the building. So at some point or another, you're renovating every classroom.
I get that, but in the meantime, it's going to be like we did the high school here. It was a nightmare. I mean,
well, that's my point. So it's not 30% of the students. At some point, every student in that
No,
building.
at one time.
At one point, he said, when we displace perhaps 20% of the kids to do phase 1, phase 2. So
It depends on how much extra space you have, and as some of the other information showed here, you don't have a lot.
So you're going to make classrooms in the cafeteria.
So right, you're going to have to make temporary classrooms throughout the building, and you're going to have to move students into temporary classrooms because you don't have the space on the site to build temporary classrooms or bring in trailers outside. So you're going to turn the cafeteria or the gymnasium into temporary classrooms, and you're going to renovate, say, 5 classrooms at a time, and bring students into those 5 classrooms, renovate those buildings, then bring them out, bring 5 new classrooms of students in, renovate those, and hop around the building doing it.
I was part of 2 renovations, the junior high school and the senior high school here. We were fortunate when we did the senior high school that we built the auxiliary gym, the new gym, because they built that gym first and then used it to house the kids from the houses that they shut down one at a time.
Right.
We were fortunate when we renovated the junior high school that the senior high school was not at capacity and neither was the junior high. So as they shut down a house at the junior high school, we moved a whole group of staff members. We moved all the 9th grade teachers out of the junior high and put them in the back end of the senior high. And 9th graders walked the entire time to the high school, and we were able to shut down one house at a time. My first year, I was relocated 4 times, just because of the logistics of it.
So where do you park 125 kids constantly?
Honestly, it's a great question for us, and I don't want to speculate as to what we do with 125 kids, but the truth is that the disadvantage that we have right now at LES is that we're at max capacity, and we're utilizing all the space.
I think my biggest concern is the impact on these kids. We're talking elementary kids.
Right.
Sure.
This isn't high school or secondary. This is elementary kids. This is a big concern.
You know, when I was at Bagley, we talked about the renovation that occurred at Bagley, and they talked about the temporary classrooms that were brought in to house students as they moved around, which is why I stuck the slide in that showed you we're really landlocked and limited in the amount of space that we have. So.
And as a parent of a student who went from Bagley's renovation to junior high renovation to senior high renovation, I'm amazed they didn't move. To be honest with you, it was odd.
The consistency and everything would be gone in renovation. That kid was going to go through K through 6, was going to be moved around that building over 2.5 years. So,
Well, he's there 7 years.
yeah, but 2.5
So half of his career in that building
is going to be
disarray. Chaos.
Right. I guess that's my point. I'm not comfortable with that.
And I'll just go back to one, if I could just go back to another thing that I said too, we're doing it at a time of maximum accountability from the state.
You know, I think, looking at this, and the kids are pretty adaptable. My kids went through renovation too. You guys did a great job teaching them, even going through all that crap. They still learn. They did a good job. I look at this thing as what it costs. Because basically, in my mind, the renovation was going to be cheaper. Why not save the building? Frankly, this, you know, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, it's chicken scratch. It really is. You spread it out over the years, and our debt service is going to be $4.8 million anyway. I don't think it makes any difference.
But the building at the end of the day, no matter what we do, is not going to be right at the end of the day.
Well, you know,
It's still a four-story building.
we're asking the taxpayers to pay for something. And if I was a taxpayer, I would say, you're going to tear down.
You are a taxpayer.
I am a taxpayer. You're going to tear down a good building, throw it away, we could fix it. How much does it cost to fix it? I walked through that building, my God, the whole thing needs fixed. You can't, there's nothing about that building that makes any sense for a little kid. It doesn't. So I understand the cost of repairing this building. I don't think anybody's making anything up to build a building. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that if anybody walks through that building and sees what it looks like, you know that's the truth. That is exactly what it is. You can't walk down some stairs because the kids can't do it. They got a ramp. Honestly, I weigh 250 pounds. I was walking down this ramp. I thought I was going to fall through. You know, I get vertigo sometimes when I walk up high places, and you stand there looking at that stairwell, and you think to myself, my God, if my grandson was in here and crawled on that railing and ended up on the bottom of that stairs, who's responsible? Is that worth $25 million? Of course it is. So I think, you know, in the context of what it costs to fix it versus what it costs to make a new one without inconveniencing any of our kids, I have to go along with building a new building. I don't see any, it doesn't make any sense to me otherwise to do another thing. So that's kind of where I am right now. Obviously, we're going to talk about this and study it some more. You know, I went through the first tour of this thing. I wasn't privy to anything else after that because I had to leave the retreat before anybody got their folders or anything. But, you know, this is the first time I've seen this whole thing, and, you know, this makes sense to me. You know, we're not going to increase the taxpayer bill. We're going to add a couple of years to it. You know, as far as the debt service goes, it's going to be the same anyways, no matter what we do. If we build a new one, or we renovate it, might add a year or two. But in the long run, it's going to be better for the kids, I think, if we build a new one.
I think what you have to look at too, Mike, in 5 years from now, what are we at? If you look down on this chart as to when we did renovation, it gets less and less time between renovations. So in 5 years, are we going to have to do another one? Yeah, it's to the point where how much money do we want to throw into this cash cow? When do we just want to do it?
Well, you know, my thought was when we renovated that Mountain View and Bagley, I thought we should have blown those damn buildings up, put new ones up there anyway. I thought the same thing about the junior high school because in my mind, that was the stupidest construction I ever saw in my life. Making a big giant circle and putting everybody in one circle. They did the same thing with Mountain View and Bagley years ago when they built those buildings. You know, they had this la-di-da attitude that we're going to throw all the kids in together. Yeah, it made sense if you're going to scatter them, right? You know, they built a building that doesn't work. And we adjusted those buildings to make them work. My thought back then was we should have blown them up and built new ones there too, but we didn't do that. So we retrofit something to make it work. Honest to God, you got some building, I'm not criticizing anybody, but you go in some of these hallways, these kids don't even know if it's raining or snowing, or it could be July 5th or December 28th. You have no idea. I live with that every day in an emergency room. I'm standing in a room, I don't know if it's storming or raining or snowing. Sometimes I'm stunned when I go outside and see what's happening. But these kids don't know what's happening because they can't see it. So we're going to retrofit an old building that was built 100 years ago for senior high students, but we've been using it for elementary school kids. I'm surprised nobody's fallen down that stairwell yet.
I might make note that in 1993, the district spent $9 million to renovate LES and could have built a new building for $12 million. We sit in 2015 with an estimated renovation of $23.1 million, and the district could build new for $29.7 million. I think it's an interesting analogy from 1993 to 2015 and the amount of money that the district has placed in Latrobe Elementary School.
And it is our job as a school board to look out, not 2 years or even 5 years, but 15 and 20 years and what's going to happen, and steward to that. I think it's pretty obvious. But I do want to turn to Mrs. Kozar, who is chair of the property and supply, and ask what your recommendations are.
The recommendation of property and supply is to build new.
And administration.
The administration feels strongly that at this point, with the needs that have been identified at Latrobe Elementary School through this feasibility study, as well as the accountability piece that Mr. Prempeh spoke about, clearly the direction of the administration would be to recommend to building brand new Latrobe Elementary Schools to service the students in that same area.
As promised then, everybody else is done. If any board members have any questions, this would be the time. Otherwise, I'm going to open it up to the public, to the hearing of visitors, to this particular topic. And just this particular topic, because we do have hearing of visitors at the end for other agenda items. So this is just special because we just presented this.
We do have a long meeting, so we'd ask you to keep your remarks 3 to 5 minutes at the most. And please, any remarks on LES, make them now, and don't double up here.
Like I said, my name is Tim Thomas. I live at 1293 Poppers Road. When I look at these deplorable conditions, when we built a $10 million mistake, why didn't we spend the money there at that time? It's the same board except for Bill, okay? Why didn't we spend it on that instead of building it on the play fields in the back? That's terrible. That's not using your head wisely. You know, and another thing is, if you're going to build this building to 800, you're at 800 now. Well, shouldn't you allow for an increase in students? And also, there was 18% for this soft funding. You're going to have 15% soft funds on a brand new building when you're supposed to know everything. I think that's way off. How about, we didn't even talk about land costs. We didn't even talk about demolition costs. Okay? Why don't we put this building where the football field is? Use this football field out here anyhow. Why don't you just tear it down? You got all the room you want. You already got the parking. Why wouldn't you put it there? You know, why do you want to landlock that new building in that tight, confined space to turn around school buses and people? Your traffic volume is terrific. You put it down at the high school football field, you got all the room in the world. You want down there, you can make lanes everywhere you want to. You have these fields out here, use them, and go there. You know, and then another thing, you know, is very, very troubling to me is we have professionals and we have contractors in this district. Why do we go outside our district to hire people? I think that if a decision is made to build or to redesign, there should be a qualification list for the professionals and for the contractors. We have plenty of architects in this district. We have plenty of surveyors who can survey. We have mechanicals. We have it all right here. And I think that should be a priority in this district, that we keep money in our own backyard for the people that have to continuously pay these school taxes. I have a lady here, she's 91 years old. She's been paying school taxes since she's 18. It just never ends. And when you did that presentation, does that count the $10 million debt we have in the back?
Yes, it does.
So that's part of that also?
The 10 million is included in that $25 million number I mentioned.
Okay, well, and I'll close with this, but, and I've said this many times before, we had a Latin program here. And when Mrs. Bronson retired, we cut the program. Okay, now, I think that's wrong. I mean, we want high academic achievements. My son knows so many different languages and has been blessed because he went with Mrs. Bronson's class. It's unbelievable. And we're really missing the boat on that. And I think we need to really focus in on the academics and how we want to generate greater academics than we do have now.
Thank you for your comments. That's all. Somebody else.
What do I have to state again?
Your name and address.
My name is Heather Schmidt and I live at 2416 Green Street. I don't know if this has to pertain to the construction at all, but when he had shown where the justification of where the new school would go, my question is, where would the kids go for a playground? Where would, if that wasn't brought up, where would be a playground and places for them to run? Because I know the kids have to walk to Memorial Stadium or around the playgrounds, but if this is moved down 2 more blocks, where are our kids going to go play? That was my question.
On the site plan, there was a playground out back. No, it's okay.
I'm sorry, it's not pointed out. There was a playground over to the right side of it. There's also some space, some green space in that area. It was, I was trying to get through the presentation. I apologize for not.
All right, then thank you. That was my question, was where was that?
Well, and the other thing that Mr. Tack is not saying, but did say in our committee, is architecture actually is site specific. And so when the building is, when we agree and we find it and we agree to that site, he will design it for that site. Not, that was a generic plan that he made to try and fit into 3 different potential sites within Latrobe. So that, what was shown on the slide was merely that building could fit in that site. But the building that he designs may not be anything like that, other than the idea that there are central parts and the classrooms and that kind of thing. So there will be more options.
Okay, just as a parent, I just wanted to know, because if that's the 3rd option, where are the other 2? What other options were there? Was there any other options?
They were being not.
Yeah, they are feasible.
And it was certainly a concern of ours that there be playground space for students.
My name is Mary Lou Townsend. I live in Lawson Heights, which is in Unity Township, but many of you do know me. I taught in the Greater Latrobe School District for 37 years. 7 of them in the building that we're discussing right now, and the other 30 in the building that you so beautifully described. It's so close to the airport. From the time it was built, I said it would have made a perfect air terminal, but not much of a school building. But great advances have been made. My concern is for the community at large. There are a number of issues. One of my concerns is that currently LES contains the only auditorium in town. Is there any plan for an auditorium in this new building? Not just a stage at the end of the cafeteria. Anytime, I should mention to those who don't know, I'm also president of the Latrobe Historical Society, which meets in LES. And that's not my concern right now. And I'm not speaking to that. There's room in this town somewhere. But my concern is with the auditorium. When we've done programs as a historical society, we've always had to go to our second or third choice of dates because the junior high musical was using the stage, or there was some community group was using the auditorium. So I'm concerned for the community and what the community might be losing. I know your priority is the students. As a former teacher, believe me, much of our time at the Historical Society is focused on working with the students in the school district. And I'd hate to lose that connection as well. But I'm thinking of the community at large. Is there any plan for an auditorium in this new building?
The design is yet to come. I will tell you that for the last calendar year, from last July to the present July, the LES auditorium was rented 5 rooms by outside groups.
Okay, by outside groups.
That is not speaking to the students at LES using the auditorium, but from groups that rent the auditorium last year, from July to July, was rented 5 rooms.
And my other question is, what happens to the present building? You know, and that's, again, I work often with the revitalization program in the borough, and another empty building becoming an eyesore, you know, is not doing much for the school or for the community either.
That's also in discussion.
Pardon me?
That's also in discussion as well.
Yeah. Those are my 2 concerns about this.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mrs. Cozar, I think you still have your hand.
Oh. I have one question. I just asked Mr. Collins, but the fields that they want to use now, that is owned by the city, or who owns it? The city owns it. What are they going to charge us to use it?
We're deciding to move forward with building. That will obviously be a discussion about the recommendation.
Good evening. My name is Rosie Wolford, and I'm the mayor of the city of Latrobe, and I just want to speak on behalf of the city council and the residents of Latrobe and myself personally. We're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. So we're really excited about the opportunity, and I also wanted to tell you that I'm thrilled about what you folks have done at the high school. I've worked in private sector my whole life. People move because of school districts. The first place they look when they're buying a home, when they're moving into a corporation or a community is, where am I going to live? I need to know about the school district. Latrobe has such a tremendous reputation. I've had people that come into the company that I work for, not knowing the area, buying a house outside of the Greater Latrobe School District. A year or 2 later, kids are, going to school, they've sold their house and moved into Greater Latrobe School District because of the reputation that it has. And we have to continue to do that. We have to stay innovative, we have to stay with technology, and we have to continue to do that to grow the community as a whole. So I commend you on what you've done so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
The minutes from our previous property supply meeting on July 1st are attached to our agenda, and our next property supply meeting will be August 6th.
Mrs. Mays, Education and Planning. Thank you. Enrollment report, Mr. anything for the school?
We actually don't have a formal enrollment report because we're in these schools roll over, but I'll email that up to the board members as soon as it comes up. It was actually up this afternoon. But I do have kindergarten numbers for you. We are currently at 244 kindergartners registered 75 at Bagley, 83 at LES, and 86 at Mountain View. That 83 is up from 68 last month, and I anticipate it will continue to grow, and that's all we keep an eye on it, and we're almost at 250.
Thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Okay, educational programs, Dr. Becker.
Yes, I would just like to say that our free technology education teacher did attend a free technology education teachers in one elementary school. Did attend the project in grade 3. Great feedback from that, so we're very excited to begin implementing that program and continue a K-12 STEM professional development opportunities for all our teachers.
Thank you. I will move for adoption of resolution number 002 to accept a tuition student from the Latrobe School District, and I'd like to bundle that with resolution number 003 to approve the band and floor trip from April 19, 2000, that'd be 16, I think, to April 24, 2016 for the It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That vote passes unanimously. I also move for adoption of resolution number 004 and resolution number 005. 004 being to approve the Adelphi Education Services Partial Hospital Renovation ESY/summer program, and that's an annual thing. And number 005 to approve the NHS Human Services Schools Agreement, that also is an annual thing. So I move for adoption of the resolutions number 1. Second. Moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. I move for adoption of resolution number 6 to approve the Follow Teacher and Associates Incorporated contract for the next school year. Second. Moved and seconded. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And that motion passes unanimously. And one more, I move for adoption of resolution number 7 to permission to accept a grant from the Latrobe Partners in Education Foundation for the purpose of supporting personnel costs, and those would be for Jessica Golden and Sharon William to
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Okay.
Thank you very much.
And lastly, our next look up, we got to vote. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That vote passes unanimously. The next curriculum committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, April the 25th, 5:30 here at the CSC. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. Finance, Mrs. Zeller?
Mr. Madam President, I move for adoption of resolution 8 to approve the treasurer's report and resolution 9 to approve the payment of bills.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
And I move for adoption of resolution 10 to approve the tax exoneration list pertaining to 1415.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes 8-1.
And our next meeting is going to be on the first Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. as we have in the building, that's August 5th.
Thank you, Mrs. Zeller. Student activities and recreation. I move for the adoption of resolution number 11 to approve the dental examiners and costs. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously. I would 5 p.m., and that would be one of the reasons I would say we would want to check out that stage.
That's a good one.
Community Relations, Dr. George.
Two resolutions, number 12, to approve memorandum of understanding between the City of Latrobe Police Department and the Latrobe School District. So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
Resolution number 13 is approve memorandum of understanding between the Pennsylvania State Police and the Latrobe School District. So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
You have an attachment in your minutes here about the Latrobe School District Department of Renovation Commission meeting next in May. That's all.
You, Mrs. Haynes. Thank you. There is an attachment summarizing the WIU youth board meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2015. I need to inform you that I think that Mrs. Storm did send me how we did hire the board secretary for the WIU. Dr. Jason Conway, and he comes to us from the state of Delaware, who is the superintendent of the Lake Forest School District, and he officially started on July 1st. And he right now is setting up meetings with IU board members and the formalizing his plan. He should be coming to a meeting to introduce himself sometime. And the next WIU committee meeting is Tuesday, August 25th at 7:30 p.m. at the WIU. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Haynes. WCTC, Mrs. Koza.
Yes, I have no report other than that our next meeting is August 19th at 7 p.m.
And that the construction of the HVAC systems in the building has begun. They can be.
That's a renovation.
They're just trying to get them to do it.
Yes. It's a good construction. Not bad. As far as we know.
Mrs. Elder, board policy.
Yes, first I'd like to remind everybody that the school district is entitled to 3 voting delegates at the PSBA Delegate Assembly in Hershey in October. And if you're intending to attend that meeting, please let the board secretary know as soon as possible. And we hope that you will be willing to serve as a delegate. It's not as long and involved as it used to be by any means, and it's a great learning experience for board members. And I'll move for adoption of resolution number 14 to approve the board policy.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Transportation, Mr. Music?
Yes, as Mrs. Pine said, the rollover has been done. The routing is beginning tomorrow, which is a little earlier, which is good. Tom will be here from AJ Myers to help along with DMJ. And all the driver credentials are instructed to be in me by August 10th. That you'll have them for your board meeting, if anyone would like to stop the officer at that time to look at it, or I will have them all. And other than that, and I can address the van at this point, for Mr. Collins. The vans that we're discussing purchasing are the smaller vans that you don't need any certain driver's license to have. And the reason I think we saw students tied in, we had referenced that it might help some of our small athletic teams and save us money, because we rent vans when like 2 golfers make the state championships. We have to rent a van for $400 for the weekend to take them out there and back. So we thought if we got a new van, a 7-passenger van, we just use our school van to send our athletes out, not pay the $500. Or when you have 2 tennis players make the state championship, or 3 swimmers, it becomes a vehicle we can use to send our students places and probably save a pile of money rather than rent everything from Hertz. Not that I don't want to help with businesses that we can save a pile of money. But to your point, you don't need any certain driver's license. They're small enough capacity. If that was your question, why do we have licensed drivers? It can be anybody. They're only like 7 to 10 max.
I understand that, but when you have a professional driver that has a professional license, it's more prevalent to have them drive the vehicle than everything teaching. The teacher and the police, they want a greater responsibility. When you have your own car out the fire or laying off whoever, it's much more stringent in the requirements.
Thank you. We're really not allowed to discourse back and forth. I do
Well, he
appreciate
asked
you
me the
answering.
question, so I
No, he
was
was answering your question.
No. He asked me a question, so I answered him, okay? No, well, no bullshit on you too, lady.
Mr. Thomas, you're out of order. You can't speak that way.
Well, she can't just rip into me either.
Mr. Thomas, she didn't rip into you, and no one ripped into you. Everybody's just trying to address the concern you have. If you speak like that anymore, we will have to ask you to leave the meeting. We don't talk like that. You just don't.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
Technology, Mr. Plummer?
Thank you, Dr. Lund. I have nothing to report, however, we do have a technology meeting August 18th at 6 p.m. here at CSC.
I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 15, which is to approve the resignations listed there. I'd like to note and thank all of them, but specifically Diane Panzera, who we just received a retirement letter. She has served the district as a language arts teacher at a senior high school for many years. We appreciate her service, as well as the other people that are resigning for various reasons. Thank you.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. And all those opposed? That vote passes unanimously.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 16, which is the approval of the 2015-2016 teacher leaders.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 17, which is the approval of professional personnel. As noted, there are 3 professional teachers that we're asking the board to approve tonight. Resolution number 17.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
I would note that 2 of the 3 were here this evening, and I think 2 of them have left, but Leah Stas is still here. We'd like to welcome her. I don't think I saw the other 2, I think, am I correct? They were here for a while. They were here for a while. But thank you very much. And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 18, the approval of the professional personnel and the substitute teacher list that we start the school year with. Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
And I ask the board to move on resolution number 19, which is the approval of the support personnel classified positions.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 20, which is the approval of the AmeriCorps personnel list.
So moved. It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
And last, I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 21, which is the approval of the support personnel supplemental appointments.
So moved. Been moved and seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? And that vote passes unanimously.
And other business, we do have our new student and student orientation Vacations coming up for the 2015-16 school year. Our sophomore new student orientation is Wednesday, August 19th at the senior high school auditorium at 9:30 in the morning. Our 7th and 8th grade, 7th grade and new 8th and 9th grade orientation is Thursday, August 20th. And the first day of school for students is August 31st, Monday. Be here before you know it. And our board meeting dates in August are Tuesday, August 18th and Tuesday, August 25th. Thank you.
Okay, we will have hearing of visitors part 2. Again, you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak to anything that you can do. Seeing none, I move for resolution number 22,